A lion attends his savior's funeral. You won't believe what he did next. John Rendall wasn't a wildlife expert. He wasn't even a zookeeper. He was just a man with a heart big enough to care. Living in South Africa, John had dedicated his later years to volunteering at wildlife sanctuaries. He believed every creature deserved a second chance, especially the ones the world had given up on. One day deep in the bush, he stumbled upon a sight that would change his life forever. A young male lion, injured, starving, barely clinging to life. He was tangled in a poacher's trap, his golden fur stained with dirt and dried blood. His eyes, once fierce, were now filled with pain and fear. Most people would have backed away, but John didn't. Slowly, carefully, he approached the animal, speaking gently as if trying to calm a frightened child. With help from local rangers, he freed the lion and brought him to a nearby rescue facility. Over the next few weeks, John stayed by the lion's side. He cleaned his wounds, fed him by hand, and even slept near his enclosure to keep him company. Locals started calling the lion Gabriel because John had quite literally been his guardian angel. At first, Gabriel was wary. He would retreat to the corner of his enclosure, his eyes tracking John with silent suspicion. But John never rushed him. He spoke softly, moved slowly, and simply sat nearby, letting the lion get used to his presence. Trust, he knew, had to be earned. Days turned into weeks. Gabriel began to recognize John's voice, the rhythm of his footsteps, the scent of his clothes. He would inch closer during feeding time, his massive paws silent on the straw-covered floor. Then one day, something remarkable happened. Gabriel pressed his head gently against the bars, allowing John to stroke his mane. It was the first touch of trust. From that moment, the bond between them deepened. John would sit with Gabriel for hours, talking to him as if he were an old friend. The lion, now stronger and healthier, would rest his head in John's lap like a house cat, completely at peace. For Gabriel, John wasn't just a caretaker, he was family. He had given him a life when all hope had been lost. And in return, Gabriel gave John something equally rare, the unconditional love of a wild creature who had learned to trust again. As Gabriel regained his strength, John faced a heartbreaking truth. The lion was ready to return to the wild. It was what they'd worked toward, what Gabriel deserved, freedom. But the thought of letting go weighed heavily on John's heart. The day of the release was bittersweet. The sanctuary gates opened onto a vast, protected reserve where Gabriel could live freely. John walked with him to the edge, speaking softly, the same way he had that first day. Gabriel turned to him, their eyes locking in a silent farewell. He didn't run off. He lingered. And then, with one final glance, Gabriel stepped into the grasslands and disappeared among the trees. John stood there for a long time, alone. He had given Gabriel a second chance, but in doing so, he had given up a piece of himself. Still, he knew. Some goodbyes are gifts in disguise. Years passed. Gabriel thrived in the wild, becoming a dominant force in the reserve. Rangers occasionally spotted him from afar. Proud, healthy, unmistakable with his golden mane. But he always kept to himself, never venturing near humans. Except once, when he wandered near the sanctuary, pausing for hours by the fence as if searching for someone. John, now older and slower, continued his work quietly. He never spoke much about Gabriel, but his eyes would light up whenever someone mentioned the lion. He said he could still feel him out there, alive and free, and that was enough. Then one quiet morning, John didn't wake up. He passed peacefully in his sleep, leaving behind a legacy of kindness and courage. The news spread quickly through the sanctuary, but no one could have guessed that somewhere far away, deep in the wild, a lion would soon feel the change in the wind. The morning of John's funeral was overcast, the sky heavy with clouds as if the heavens themselves mourned. Friends, family, and sanctuary staff gathered under a large tree near his cottage, the same place he used to sit and talk to animals as they healed. As the eulogies began, no one noticed the rustling in the distance. Then a hush swept through the crowd. Emerging from the tall grass, like a ghost from the past, came Gabriel. No one dared move. It had been years since he'd been seen this close to the sanctuary. Slowly, silently, he approached the gathered mourners. There was no aggression, no fear, only purpose. Gabriel walked straight to John's casket. He lowered his head, resting it gently against the wooden box, eyes closed, breathing deeply, as if to say goodbye. Then he lay down beside it, his massive frame curled protectively, just as he had once done at John's feet. Gasps turned to tears. No one spoke. No one could. The lion hadn't just come to pay respects. He came to grieve. It was a moment no one could have scripted. A wild beast, mourning not a master, but a friend. As the funeral came to an end, people expected Gabriel to leave, to vanish back into the wild as suddenly as he'd come. But he didn't. Instead, he stayed beside John's casket long after the crowd had gone. He lay there through the afternoon, through the wind and light drizzle, unmoving, a silent sentinel guarding the man who had once guarded him. That night under the stars, he let out a low, aching roar that echoed across the plains. It wasn't loud or angry. It was mournful, a sound of loss, of longing, of love. For 2 full days, Gabriel refused to leave. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't drink. Rangers watched from a respectful distance, stunned. Finally, on the morning of the 3rd day, Gabriel rose. He walked to the tree where John used to sit, circled it once, then disappeared into the tall grass. No one ever saw him again, but they say the reserve still holds his echo, that sometimes at sunset, a deep roar rolls through the trees, as if he's still watching, still mourning, still remembering. What he did wasn't instinct, it was love, a lion's final tribute to the only man he ever trusted. Some stories stay with us, not because they're unbelievable, but because they reveal something deeply human, even through the eyes of a wild animal. Gabriel and John's bond wasn't just about rescue or survival. It was about trust, forgiveness, and a love that crossed the boundaries of species.